Hello, everybody. It's episode 2 of the Mark Martin Archive podcast. I'm Charlie Marlow. There's Mark Martin. There is Matt Martin. How you guys doing today, fellas?
Doing good, sir. How you doing?
Fantastic.
All right, very well. Mark, first of all, tell people about your travel schedule. I think people know you're out in California, but then you fly to Charlotte for the announcement Monday, and here you are right back in Cali again.
Yeah, I told a friend of mine this morning that it took 3 days to do a 2.5 hour press announcement, but I'm glad I went. I was honored to be invited, and was very pleased with the announcement and the outcome, the decision that NASCAR made.
And so people know, I think this show usually is going to be very much based on stories, yourself and Matt telling old stories. But for this episode, because we know you were Mr. Full Season Points, you're obviously there for the announcement. We're going to focus a ton on what's going on with NASCAR. I think most people know it's going to be a 10-race chase. So, Mark, first of all, just tell us about the announcement, how it came together with you being there, and what your experience was like.
Well, first of all, I don't have to tell anyone that's watching this show because they're all fans of mine. So they know that I took the stance of the fans, what I believed, was the majority of the fans. And because that aligned with how I felt, I decided to be their voice. And oddly enough, Tim Clark from NASCAR invited me to be on this committee that, was going to discuss format for the points situation. So obviously I got on it. And first of all, I'd like to explain to everyone that, I have a little bit of trouble sleeping, the least little thing. And I can't tell you how many nights that I lost sleep over this. And Matt, and I discussed an awful lot before the first committee meeting. And I was prepared, and
Yeah, I helped him prepare notes.
Yeah, he did.
He was the most prepared in the meeting.
Was.
Yeah.
And then, I had, obviously Matt sat in and could hear the video. I wasn't able to go. So it was like a Zoom video. So I wasn't able to go to Daytona. And so Matt could hear, what was said. And I was ready to rock. And so they opened it up, said, "This is what we're doing. Does anybody want to say anything?" And I said, "Me." So I was the first one to speak.
Yeah.
And I was absolutely brutal, vicious, just terrible. And don't call it, stop calling it playoffs. Ain't nobody playing out there. The whole thing, it was brutal. And after I finished, you could hear a pin drop. Nobody wanted to say anything. Nobody was going to get in the 36 race. Nobody on that committee was prepared to join in that. And then, I won't go into this because it gets personal if I say, but there was someone that came on and said, "Well, I respect Mark Martin so much," and on and on and on. But, we see all this viewership spike. We have to have eliminations, and we have to have a play, and when it was all said and done, the best that was offered up by anyone was a 3-race, the same format, but instead of 1 race to decide the champion 3. And after the meeting was over, I was furious, and I couldn't sleep for the longest time. I was so mad that I was also a little bit embarrassed because I felt like that everybody in that room said, "What in the hell is wrong with Mark Martin?" And so that's why I kind of felt embarrassed. Here I had all this respect for this guy, and he's a loon, but there was no one that was willing to get in that camp. And so I was mad about it. I had a conversation with Jeff Gluck, and I had done the poll on Twitter, and I had 20,000 people, respond to it. It was an 80-20 issue. If you combine full season points and 10 race chase, it was 80% of the fans. And they said, oh, they're just old people because they follow you. And that's bull. That was bull. So Jeff Gluck did the same poll, exact same poll, and got 30,000 and got damn near exactly the same sentiment. The numbers were the same. And I challenged NASCAR, put a poll out. I knew they wouldn't because they didn't want the answer, because nobody in the industry wanted anything less than a playoff system. Honestly, I'm telling you like it is. Now, many only wanted that because they thought that's what TV wanted. And it seemed kind of obvious that that is correct. But after that meeting, the TV partners that were involved in it said, well, we're fine with anything. They didn't want to be the ones that made the call. So anyway, long time after that, we had the second meeting, and I came with double barrels again, wide open, hard as I could go, with the full season points. By that time, Jeff Gluck saw the light. He said, "Man, it's a drastically different than the poll that was taken right after the playoffs were announced." Everybody, there was a majority of pro playoffs when they announced it. I wasn't against it either. It hadn't shown its flaws yet until we put it into effect over the years, and then flaws started to show. So after the second meeting, at the very end, one person with NASCAR said, well, anything outside of playoff is not probably anything that we can consider. And so I was like, well, why are we having these meetings? I've wasted my time. I've, put myself out there on a limb, and, why are we having this? And so I was pissed and mad. And then months and months and months later, they had the third meeting. And the third meeting I couldn't be in, but I could listen to. And I sent word through Jeff Gluck that I had two things to say. I'm still, all in for 36 races, but I would support 10 race, but nothing less. I could not get behind anything less than 10 race thing, because I knew we weren't going to get 36. I knew it. And so did most everyone else. So that's why they were afraid to get on that camp, because they knew they couldn't get it and make them look bad, because they're going against what they believed that television really wanted. And so, this is a long explanation, but that's kind of where it came. So after that third meeting, I knew that we would never even get 10. I felt like we would never get 10 races. And so when I got the call from Tim Clark saying that they'd made the decision and that this was what it was going to be, I was thrilled, because that's for all the people that are in the 36 race full season points thing. This is the best you were going to get. And it's incredible that we got there. But I was told by, at the NASCAR R&D Center and by many inside the NASCAR community, that my push had actually got so much traction that 30 to 40% of the people in that NASCAR building were on the 36 full points race. So long story short, at the end of the day, there's plenty of reasons why you would struggle to get to 36. But if getting to 10 was possible, now getting to 36 is not nearly as impossible as it was to start with.
Yeah, and I do think the timeline of this is very interesting. So real quick, can you just tell us when those meetings were, the first, second, and third approximately?
The first was in February. Everybody was at Daytona, so they could do it together, and I had to do it virtually. The second one was, I don't know, midsummer sometime.
Something like that.
Sometime midsummer. The third one was September when we were leaving Maine, the day we were in the coach traveling. So it was September. And then honestly, with everything going so quiet afterwards, never hearing a word after that, I didn't know if we were even going to get a change. You had a lot of problems with this lawsuit. That sucked a lot of wind out of everything. So I got like 5 days before the announcement, I get the call and find out what it's going to be, and it's like, holy cow, this is a big win for everyone. No one loses in this thing, really. It's a big win. It's a big win for the fans. Kudos to NASCAR for the bold move. Kudos to NBC for saying, hey, you guys figure out, we'll just cover it. Because I really honestly believe that most people in the room thought they had to have that for the sparks and the smoke and all that stuff, because they were trying to bring in non-racing fans for the entertainment. Okay, if that worked, it worked. We would pay the sacrifice for that, if it worked, but it didn't work. So the thing I couldn't understand is, why are we fighting so hard to have a playoff when it hasn't delivered what it was intended to do? And so, honestly, you're going to have less of that. You're going to have less of the Game 7 moments, and some of this goofy stuff. The eliminations were actually interesting to me. They were interesting, but at the end of the day, there was just so many flaws in the system. Why are we doing that when we've run off a huge portion of the classic race fan because they don't recognize what they're seeing anymore? It doesn't resemble what they grew up watching. So why are we pushing? Why is it that we want these playoffs so bad?
I do want to go back to that first meeting one more time in February, just to give people an idea of exactly how it went down. I'm curious, when you raise your hand and say, hey, I want to speak first, did you just go off for 15 minutes? Like, how long did you talk? Were other people chiming in, or was it just you full steam ahead? And then you said you could hear a pin drop. Like, who spoke next? Was everybody just so surprised that like they didn't know what to do?
Tell them that.
Yeah, I wasn't supposed to, but I eavesdropped on the conversation because it was hard to resist. But I'd helped him prepare his notes, just with all the historical work that I've done, for researching his book and all that kind of stuff. I just put him together a little cheat sheet of notes and everything on different, great seasons that they had, during the Winston Cup era. As examples that, like, these seasons were exciting. Every now and then you have one that I guess people might think is boring or somebody, runs away with it. But, a lot of the times you didn't have that. And yeah, like as soon as they opened it up, he went off for like 15, 20 minutes. And he went into, he talked about, not only his gripes with how they do things now and their terminology of things and the decisions that they make under the playoff system. But, he also talked about, why 1992 was such a great season. Why 1997 was a great season. You had a 3-way battle for the championship, the whole year. And it was a real close finish there at Atlanta as well. And then, but then you had seasons like 1998 where it was just dominated by, 2 drivers, him and Jeff Gordon. And even still, Jeff Gordon, ended up running away with it. But, that's actually fun to see, I would think, for a fan. Every season is a little bit different. So...
Yeah, respect the dominance of 1998.
Yeah.
Respect that. Just like the time that Martin Truex led almost all 400 laps of the Coke 600. Respect it. Why be, okay. And one of my examples I used was I watch one football game a year, the Super Bowl. And this past year, I thought it was boring. And I'm going to watch again next year because it'll probably be a great game. So that's how racing is. Not every race, and not every race is going to be a four wide finish.
Yeah.
Not every season is going to be the difference of leading one more lap.
Yeah.
Made the difference in the championship.
Yeah, the Hooters 500.
Yeah,
92. It's
92.
Like, not every race is going to be like that.
No, and if you manipulate things to try to get it to that every time, people get tired of it. The four wide finish at Atlanta was awesome. It was awesome. But if you manipulate the rules to try to get that every single race, it's not awesome anymore. And it's also fake. And there was so much fake, there's so much, manufactured drama, in all of what was going on. It was time for a change.
So clearly, your movement for full season points had built momentum. It had built momentum. You talked about Jeff Gluck. Clearly, more people were on board. You had those polls out there. But Mark, you also mentioned about 5-10 minutes ago that you think maybe the lawsuit also changed things. So do you think it was a combination of both? The fans were on your side and you also had the lawsuit? Because I'll just be honest, about a month ago, I was privy to a conversation of, I'll just say, somebody who was in the know. And this person basically said to us that it was going to be a 3 or 4 race finale. This was probably a month ago. So it sure as heck seemed like everything changed, that it was headed to 3 or 4, and then it got to a 10 race chase in the matter of about a month.
It's hard for me. I can only speculate, but you make a good point. I didn't think we would get to 10. And maybe through this lawsuit and the traction that I had finally got after the last meeting until the decision was made, there was great momentum in NASCAR itself, for a full season. And that was an icebreaker, I mean, when you go in there guns blazing for it all, which is what I did. I didn't go in for a compromise. And I'm not going to name names, but there were drivers who suggested a 3-race thing would be better. And there was one other driver that should have easily been in my camp. Thought, well, maybe even 5. There was no one in my camp, but it built momentum because the fans, I think they finally started listening and hearing the fans. And I can't blame anyone in the industry. If I was a driver, if I'm Denny Hamlin, I'm not going to stand up and tell NASCAR, hey, this is how it's got to be, because I stand to lose a lot. See, the only thing I could lose in this deal was my hard card. That's it. So I could say things that they couldn't say. Even Dale Jr., who is a racing purist, had to be careful about, how how he approached this. Well, I went into it not caring if they didn't like me ever again. I was the only one that was able to not be inside and trees everywhere and not being able to see outside. So to benefit them, there were many people who thought they could never get anywhere except playoffs. And then there were others that didn't even realize that it was so unpopular because they can't see outside of their circle. And I'm outside their circle. I don't go to races. I'm a huge fan. I watch the races, and I go to short track races. And honestly, that's why I said in the press conference, I hear all the time. I don't watch anymore. And I'm asking those fans to give it a chance because we were able to move the needle. And if we can actually get more back that have gone away, if we can get some of those back, some of them, that will help us turn the next corner because we're not done. There's lots of problems, that we need to work on. And this just shows that it can happen. It's very encouraging to many of the race fans, and I'm super encouraged. I believe Steve O'Donnell when he says we want to get back to our core, who we are. We're not trying to be ball sports. Like that was one of the things I just blasted them over. It's not ball sports. We're different, and we need to embrace who we are. And this is what Steve says now. We need to embrace who we are and be the size that we are and have some fun and let it grow organically. And so I agree with that 100%. Matter of fact, that's some of what I had said is like they forced growth so hard down the throats of traditional race fans that many of them just turned away. It turned them away. And Jeff Burton says we can't get them back, and he's probably right. But maybe we can get a few of them. Hopefully we can get enough of them back to offset the ones that are only there for the sparks and the fireworks show. Because you will lose some of those.
So you said the only thing you had to lose was your hard card, but I've heard you say I was at Kenny's shop when you said that respect is everything to you. Respect is your championship. I saw an interview with you after the press conference, and I believe you said that after the first meeting, you were about 50% maybe embarrassed. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but 50% worried about tarnishing your legacy. So you did have that also on the line, let's be honest. And do you think this has even more so solidified your legacy? Because clearly the fans were on your side. And I know you didn't get full season. That's what you wanted. But the fans were on your side. And now NASCAR is surely inching your way to the 36 points, but they met in the middle here.
Yeah, it was a big relief. I do feel, I feel like it was worth it, even if I lost, some respect and admiration. It was still worth it because I did it for the fans. I didn't do it for me. I wouldn't have done it for me. I did it because I love the sport. And even more than that, I love the fans. Even the ones that I don't like. You can love them and not like, and there's some that I don't really enjoy. But I love the fans because I am where I am today, and the success that I had in racing was because the support of the fans. In other words, those sponsors like Valvoline, Viagra, Kellogg's CarQuest, Folgers, all those people that kept me, Aaron's, all those people that kept me in the driver's seat all those years, it was the fans that these companies recognized, supported the sport and supported me. And, I always felt like I tried to have a lot of integrity, and I really owe my career largely to the fans.
So in another interview, when you hear Ben Kennedy say, we don't get here, we don't land with this compromise, the 10 race chase without Mark Martin, he flat out said that. What does that mean to you?
Wow. I haven't texted Ben Kennedy. I've hardly talked to him since he drove Matt's race car, way back, I don't know, 25 years ago or something. It seems like it was a long time ago. And I texted him afterwards because that really meant a lot. I was actually surprised that Steve O'Donnell and the folks at NASCAR, mentioned my name, so much in this. There's a little pressure to it because if it crashes and burns, I'm going to get blamed for it. But honestly, it's not going to crash and burn. It's going to be a big win for everyone in the sport because it adds legitimacy, um, to our champion. And look, the 2026 NASCAR Cup champion will have to be blistering fast and amazingly consistent. You can't get there any other way. And that's what we want. That's what the industry wants. That's what the core fan wants. And, there'll be some sparks and fireworks along the way. Maybe not quite as much as there was, but it's going to change it's dynamic. Like the broadcasters and the journalists need to cover this sport differently now. They had ready-made talking points every Monday after every race. Who's in, who's out, who made the cut, who got, the champion it's a result of all the races. The races need to be the primary thing. And these guys that win these races need to be celebrated big time. Just like I said, I truly believe, and I know it makes a lot of fans mad, older fans, but these are our Pearson, Petty's, Yarboroughs of today. And the media needs to help us show their personalities to the fans so that they can latch on to them. Same thing with the crew chiefs. Same thing with the engineers. I believe with the cars too. All those cars have serial numbers. If I'm a journalist, I'm going to go figure out what car, that this guy's bringing to this race, and maybe I just do one driver, but that car and all of its history, and say, well, that car he's never had any luck with. That's material for you to talk about instead of these stupid, winning your in, all that stuff. Let's talk about something of substance, not the whole time, but let's build these heroes. I mean, dude, what these guys are doing is amazing. No, it's not getting their hands dirty on the race car. No, it's not the same as Petty or Pearson or Yarborough. No, they're not. But they're still working just as hard. It's a different era. It's an electronic era. And I also think the playoffs didn't build superstars because, there was this win and you're in. Let's just talk about, I use this all the time because it really bothered me. Bubba Wallace whooped everybody at Indy. And that is a big deal. Huge big deal. But all I heard was he's in the playoffs now. And that's all they focused on. And it's like, no, they should have been focusing on he didn't fuel mileage in it. He didn't do that. He outran everybody. And they need to handle every race that way. These guys are heroes. These races are hard to win. And we need to cover it that way to build and grow the sport.
One of those heroes, those superstars, Chase Elliott, said he wouldn't be at the announcement if he didn't sign off on it, if it wasn't at least this 10-race chase. I know you probably don't want to continue talking about yourself, but I think in the same vein, NASCAR needed you, Mark Martin, in my opinion, to sign off on this. I'm guessing, again, I want to speak for you. I'm guessing you don't show up at this announcement if it's not this, correct? At least this.
I sent the message. I will not support anything less than 10 race because at that point it was obvious we weren't going to get 36, and we got a lot closer to it than I ever dreamed we would. And and I wanted them to know that my not supporting it meant that I would not support it to the fans. Like this, I present to the fans is this is a good thing. And if you're not happy with it, look at the alternative. Look what we were almost going to get. We fought hard. We turned the corner. Everyone is better off by this. So, that's kind of where I stand on that. And I'm really proud. I'm proud of Chase. But I think all the drivers, not all, I think the large majority of the drivers want this. I will tell you this. The only guy in the first meeting that said anything in support was Christopher Bell.
Okay.
And he says, well, I think 36 races, is the best way, but I know it's not realistic. So, he was all for, a 3 or 4, whatever. He knew it wasn't realistic, and so did everyone else in the meeting. And because I fought so hard for it, I feel that we got to the chase instead of a playoff. I just could not stomach playoffs, Game 7 moment, all this ball sport stuff. It's not ball sports. It's not that. We aren't those. You can't put us in that box. Let us be in our own box. It was fine for 50 years, the way it was, and it was growing. And, it will continue to be a great sport that we can all love unless we let it transition into something we don't recognize.
For both you guys, how do you think this will tangibly change the racing? And we've talked before about how some of these ideas sounded good in principle, but there were unintended consequences. For example, I kind of liked the drama of win and you're in, but it caused the racing to be silly so many times at the end. I kind of like a green-white checkered every once in a while, but I don't want them every single race. I don't want 5 of them at the end of every single race, right? So how do you think this chase format, which NASCAR has done before, we've seen this before, but how do you think this will actually improve the racing, guys?
Well, I don't know if I can speak so much on that. I mean, Dad would be more the expert, but I mean, I guess the points and stuff, your consistency is going to matter more, and so maybe they will be a little bit. They might second guess certain moves that they would make because if it doesn't work out, that's going to bite them more.
Yeah, a bad race, you don't get to write off. It was easy to write races off under the old format. You didn't really see that coming, but now if you can run 25th and you do something stupid and you wound up 36th, it's going to be devastating. You need to run. If that's all you got is 25th, you better damn well get it. And so I see tempers. I see more conflict over someone doing someone else wrong under this system, because you can't write these days off like you could before. Every single race matters. And even though there's a points reset for the last 10, it's still 100 points, and the guy that wins the regular season is still 25 points over second. That's substantial because these things come down to a point or two. So, and there's a huge bonus for winning a race points wise, much more than before. It puts it in a situation where you could win a race, but you didn't get any stage points. And someone else that doesn't win a race gets more points than the winner. Now that's kind of straightened up. So there may not be quite as many Hail Marys, which were kind of fun to watch, but every spot's going to matter more than it did before. If you're running 5th, you better damn well get 5th. If that's all you got, you better get it. Whereas before, if you were running 5th, we could take a shot to win, and if we finish 25th, there's no consequence to that, less consequence to that, and so it's going to make them think twice about wrecking their cars. And I honestly think that it's going to take some of these, I like to call them kids, it's going to take some of these young guys a while to learn that, because you drive by instincts, and they're making these moves and stuffing in holes that are very high risk situations. And after they wreck a time or two and they see that they put themselves in a hole that they can't dig out of for the whole year, they're going to make different decisions. Um, so, it is, I don't, racing's still racing. It's going to be fun as heck to watch and, and all. But yes, it does change the strategy. It will change. It will fall right in the hands of the guys that are always been consistent, the William Byrons or the Chase Elliott's. They always race smart, and it won't necessarily. Let's just talk about Hocevar. He's going to have
Mhm.
to look at what he does and maybe either learn the hard way or address it before it happens. For example, some of these guys that are in the gas and they go in these holes that are nearly impossible, and they cause these big wrecks. If they do get through it, the guys that did get wrecked are going to be wanting to fight a lot more than they did when well, it's just a bad race, no problem. Now a bad race costs you.
Yeah, with this format, you don't have the Harrison Burton story. I mean, these guys can still win a race. You don't have the Austin Dillon story, but then I'm thinking also those guys never really had a chance to actually win the championship. It was a nice story for them to get into the playoffs.
Yeah.
But then Kenny Wallace and I were kicking this around the other day, and I said, I kind of liked win and you're in. Could you do 2 wins and you're in? The only reason I bring that up is because SVG. Now, again, SVG was never going to win the championship, but I do feel like a guy, if you win 5 races in a year, should you make the playoffs? Which, he has to be more consistent on ovals. But that's the one guy I kind of thought, man, I feel like a 5 race winner should somehow find his way into a chase or a playoff.
Racing, man, it's the
Yeah.
full body of work. It's not one. Number one. Number two, if you win a race, you need to be celebrated as a badass. Big time. It needs to be a big deal because you won, because you beat everybody else, not because you're in the playoffs or or in the hunt. It's about the whole body of work, and we need to celebrate these race winners for being, the amazing days that they have.
And to put a bow on this points discussion, a long one that I think people are really going to appreciate before we move on to some other topics, I want to throw it to you if you guys have anything else to add. But also, I loved at the end, Mark, where you kind of said, "Look, now that we've landed on the chase, it's much easier to get from the chase to the 36 than it would be from the 3 to 4 to the 36." And then you said something along the lines of, "That's not them talking. That's me talking." Everybody kind of chuckled that, hey, still maybe next time we're all
Yeah,
still thinking about this full season deal.
absolutely. And for the the ones that are mad that they didn't get the full season, it's very complicated. It's a lot more complicated than they realize, and a lot of these issues are more complicated, than you realize until you get on the inside. But you've got contracts. You got like I thought 16 teams in the chase was too many, and then the point was brought up, but these teams pretty much all have incentives in their contract to make the playoffs. They get big bonuses. Heck, let them in. Let them get their money. They can't win the championship. 16th place, a guy that has a 16th place performance for 26 races is not going outrun all 15 of these others. So let them get their money. It's okay. Don't freak out that it's not 10. It'll be okay. It'll work itself out. And so there were a lot of factors in this, and I don't know what the contract exactly is on the NASCAR television side, but I do know from a team side, and I don't want the teams to not get you know the money that they could. So, I'm fine with the 16 based on that. I would prefer less, but you know that's the way things are structured. So it helps the teams. It helps NASCAR to have 16 in there. So It's okay.
Okay, couple other newsy topics. One from last week because we recorded on a Monday, and then later in that week, you have the news that Steve Phelps, the commissioner now, or was, I guess he's going to be commissioner for another month or so of NASCAR, resigns. I think it's fair to say whether it was resigned, let go, it was kind of clear that after the comments came out, the leaked messages or emails of what he said about Richard Childress, that he was a stupid redneck that needed to be taken back and flogged. However you feel about Steve Phelps and what he accomplished during his time at NASCAR, to me, even that just seemed like one where you couldn't get past that. Is that fair to say?
I think it's fair to say. I think that was the death blow. Steve did a lot of good things. He was a great communicator and did a lot of good work. Uh, but there was quite a few decisions, in the past, you know, several years, many years that didn't pan out to be the best decision. Um, as a whole, anybody who's in the power is always going to have you're not going to do everything right. I think Steve did a lot of good for NASCAR. I think with this lawsuit and with the remarks that came out, I don't see any way around it. It not because he's a bad person or anything else. I'm not saying that. I'm saying from the optics of it. If I'm NASCAR, I got to turn the corner. This lawsuit's behind me. We're going to make this points change. We're going to try to go back and embrace, our sport as it is instead of making it something different. We need. He's got to go. I mean, that's the way I would feel if I was a France. Um, not not because of any other performance other than, hey, we need to turn a corner here. That's part of turning the corner. And he made himself look real bad with these comments, um, and that overshadows all the good work that he's done here. Sometimes you have to make those changes. Sometimes you have to change a crew chief or, in these corporate, CEOs, sometimes the CEO's got to go for no other reason than just optics. It makes things, makes a different perspective. So, I don't have, any ill will. I know a lot of fans do. I don't have any ill will towards Steve Phelps. I do recognize that he did a lot of good work and made a lot of good decisions. I didn't like, and many of us didn't like some of them, but that's not why. That's not the real reason that I think he, had to move on.
So NASCAR is clearly going back. They're going back with the chase format, and now they're bringing back Tony Stewart at least for one race. He'll race the truck at Daytona with Colleague Racing. They're doing kind of this cool all-star deal where they have a different driver each week. But they announced Tony this week to build some positivity, obviously. And look, everybody knows Tony didn't leave the sport happy when he was an owner. He didn't like the way things were going. And I'm just guessing again. I don't like to speak for any of you. I don't think, just like you wouldn't have signed off on a format you didn't like. I don't think Tony probably comes back to NASCAR if he doesn't like the way things are going. So it seems like things are heading in a good direction, and smoke is back for at least one race now.
I don't think Tony was happy when he was in NASCAR.
Yeah, we knew
Yeah.
when he was still driving.
Yeah.
It was obvious that he wasn't happy with the sport and the direction of it. So, but to speak on Tony, he also, I think, has connections with the Dodge
Mhm.
folks or whatever as well. It all makes sense. This is a good time. Is a huge win for the fans. Huge win. We're so excited to have Smoke back in any race, NASCAR race. So that's really awesome. But um, I'm like you. I would be skeptical. I'm sure this format, points format probably pleases him. I know he would be a 36 racer guy, but also know that he's a very smart man, and he sees how hard it was to get where we even got, on a format.
And so NASCAR also they're doing the new marketing push. You got the Hell Yeah commercial that came out a couple weeks ago. They have a commercial today, at least I saw on social media, with Cleetus McFarland. What do you guys know about Cleetus? I just kind of got to know what he was doing the last year or so. I mean, this guy's a superstar. He's just so big on YouTube. He's holding these races with the Crown Vic. I mean, fans love him. NASCAR fans love him. I can't tell you how many comments that I saw from old school NASCAR fans that said, you know what? I loved NASCAR back in the day. I stopped watching NASCAR for whatever reason that we've talked about a million of those reasons. But now I'm coming back simply because of Cleetus. This is last year when he was running ARCA. This guy's a difference maker.
Blue collar. Mm-hmm. That's who he's appealing to. That's our core race fan. And NASCAR got away from appealing, I think, to the blue collar race fan. And Cleetus is just fun. I mean, he's fun, and he's real and real down to earth, and he's fun, and that's why he's a star. And I didn't see him. I'm like you. It's just been a couple of years, and I'm like. They got after me so hard to come and do that race, 2 or 3 years ago. Just the fans were saying I needed to do it. So, not something racing is not something right on the top of my list, but I love what he's doing for the sport. I don't know him personally, but he's doing great things for the sport. He's got a huge following, and it's cool to see him, dipping his toe into NASCAR, into the big league.
So what do you guys think is left to still fix? It's a work in progress. I think the fans have gotten a ton of wins in the last couple weeks. I'll just throw a couple out for myself. I feel like the short track racing we've seen with the next gen car, it's really good on the intermediates. They did this test the other day. The drivers said they didn't see a huge difference in the horsepower. So I'm interested to see what you guys think about that. How can you make the car racier? And then this is just for me, the fuel saving at super speedways. I always just think about, Mark, you said blue collar. When I think about how NASCAR started, which is outlaws, which are guys cheating up cars in the Carolinas to run moonshine from the law, and then we're fuel saving on super speedways. I'm just like, come on. That's not how this sport was founded. So that's just one of my personal things I feel like they need to change. What do you guys think they still need to fix as we continue to try to improve just little things here and there?
Well, I think the most difficult thing, even more so than fixing the point system, is I would say probably moving the number to the door.
I mean, that costs no money.
Yeah, but that's not easy from what I've heard.
No, it's not easy. But all these things, the fans are a lot of fans don't like this car, don't like the way it races. That's not an easy fix. I spent 3 hours with John Prost in the R&D center, looking at the car, looking at all the machinery, talking about aerodynamics, figuring out what the numbers are. It's taken 4 years for me to find out how much downforce that this car makes. 4 years. So a lot of these problems, a lot of these issues are really, really complicated. The single lug isn't as easy. Everybody wants 5 lugs. Well, the explanation on that, for example, is 18-inch wheel. I approve that. That's more, representative of what you buy performance on roads today. So, yeah, you need 18-inch wheel. Well, steel's so damn heavy, they can't carry it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Okay, so you got 5-lug aluminum wheel. Now it's 30% weaker, and when these guys leave 1 or 2 lug nuts off, it leaves you vulnerable to break a wheel. Problem. The tire's too wide. Why is the tire so wide? Well, just what I found out. The tires, because Goodyear, for some reason, it's very important to Goodyear to have a total volume of air. So when you make the wheel bigger, they want to make the tire, they wanted the tire wider. So all these things that you complain about, if you don't get educated on, you just don't understand. And you think, well, these people are stupid. All this stuff is complicated. And most of all these things, a lot of things NASCAR gets blamed for. Let me just give you an example. The fans hate that damaged vehicle policy. They hate it. That's the teams. That's not NASCAR. The number location, that's the teams. They wanted NASCAR to make that rule. They didn't want to, NASCAR, I heard, suggested you put the number where you want it. No, we want a rule, and they wanted it up there. So all these different things.
For sponsorship reasons.
Okay, so the quarter panel isn't as big as the old car. That's something that I would have, I questioned. I said, why don't you make the quarter panels longer and widen the rear bumper and flatten out that wheel well and make it look like a race car? Well, the OEMs sent us this silhouette. That's what the OEMs wanted, and so there you have it. I would have, if I would have been in charge, I'd said, I know that's what you want, but this is what you're going to get, and then you would have had a better signboard for the sponsor on the quarter panel.
It's like y'all tweaked the Thunderbird back in the day multiple times.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just got to stand up and say, no, we're not doing that. And I wish they would have done it, but you've got the teams fighting for some things to save money. That's why 750 horsepower is as high as you can go, because if they go higher than that, their engine bill is going to substantially go up. And so the teams don't want it. So 900 horsepower, I'm going to tell you, you'll never see it, because once you give the teams these things, you can't take them back. Once you start giving somebody money for something, you just can't take it back. It's like that system is there forever. And so, there's a lot of pushback. NASCAR has a lot of pushback, and I'm not defending them. I'm going to tell you, they've made a lot of poor decisions in my mind, but there's been a lot more they get blamed for that, it's not really them. The only thing they could have done is said, no, we're not doing that. No, we're not doing that, which I wish they would have.
Yeah,
but
Bill France Jr. would have probably done that.
Would have exactly done that.
Yeah.
But, it's a different world now. And it's just like that points committee. After we had the first meeting, I was just mad. I was like, that's what you get for having a committee. If you have a committee and you have the wrong people in the committee, you get the wrong answer.
Yeah, Bill didn't really have committees. It was like him and like a couple of people, and he was like a dictator. And just the world we live in today, I mean, there's very few things that are like that, I guess.
That's right. And I love that he was a dictator. I love it because, it was his way or highway, and he was right almost all the time. But it's a different world we live in now, and things are just more complicated than they appear. And so I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that I'd like to see change, but I want a break. You don't know how hard I've fought for an entire year to get this, and I'm not ready to start today on the next one that is so hard to win. Like, dude, I have never won. NASCAR has never listened to me.
What was it back in the 90s? Bill France Jr. got real pissed off at you because you said something about taking the banks out of Talladega and Daytona.
Yeah.
What was the deal?
I hated plate racing, and we were all wrecking, and it was just, I hated it, and I'm like, there's only one way to fix this. Let's take the banking out. I thought he was going to tear my head off. And he's right. I mean, it wouldn't be, you couldn't see, the track's too big if you flatten turns out. But I mean, that is the only way to fix it. If you wanted to race without restrictor plates, you had to take the banking away. And I also said during that time privately that we're going to outgrow these intermediates too. And we have. Now they're restricted there as well. So, yeah, auto race, I mean, the tires are better, the cars are better, everything's better. We've got less power than we ever had and still going fast. It's, it's an ongoing process, but I love the way Bill France ran it, but you can't run it like that now. And, um, and so you've got a lot of parties that have a say. NASCAR uses this word, all the stakeholders. And they've all got a say in all these decisions.
So you said you want a break. You're still going to do the podcast, though, right? Of course, of course.
Yeah, I just don't want another NASCAR fight.
Right.
You don't know.
Fight.
I mean, yeah, you don't know what this sucked the life out of me. And like I said before, I never ever won an argument with NASCAR. Never. This is my first win ever, and it's a big win. And I don't want to take on the next one knowing that I'm probably going to lose, because I just want to enjoy the victory for right now.
I thought it was really cool that, Ben and Steve and everybody gave you so much credit, for this. And I don't know. I mean, I get the feeling that they really want you to be involved and, give them some advice and help them make decisions, which I think that's really cool.
Yeah, there's, you don't ever know what's in the future. They've shown interest in having me, and some other guys, have some influence on things. I really think they're trying to right the ship. I really do. And we'll see. I've said it all along. Actions speak louder than words, but we've seen some action. Let's keep it going. Let's just keep it going.
Yeah. And now we're having fun now. So once you have your break and we give NASCAR a break and we celebrate the victory, is it fair to say, if we have a tease, that the next big fight, would it still be the number on the door? Is that the next fight? Maybe months from now, a year from now?
I don't know. There are some things that are more important than that, honestly. I don't know. There are some, and I don't want to name anything. I don't want to start that. But that's important to me because of the aesthetics, and people don't recognize that the aesthetics of a race car is really important. It's a big factor. But in the scheme of things, we've got to, there's other things. The car's got to race better. There's a lot of other improvements, that need to be had, and they're working. I mean, they're testing right now different packages and everything at North Wilkesboro. Different teams, different ideas. They're really trying to improve the racing on the track, NASCAR, and they're allowing teams to, be involved in that as well. But it's not easy. If you ask 3 different teams what needs to be done, you'll get 3 different answers. And it's not clear. I still think, honestly, if they would let me dictate a car and the things I want to do to it, and a first test to see if we could get one car and a driver to drive it, I still believe that the trailing car problem that they have, the dirty air problem that they have, that is bigger than it's ever been in the history of the sport. It's been growing ever since 1993, and now it's the biggest ever. I believe I'm the only person that believes that can be cured, but it brings a lot of other problems up, and it requires a lot of change. And you're going to have drivers that resist that, and probably teams that resist it. But I think that could be resolved or greatly improved. But That's a bigger one probably than the points thing. No one wants to do that. No one wants to go in the direction that I've been screaming since 1995. You know, like 1995, we had arrow push for, and people were tired of it. And I said, we need to take downforce out of these cars. And Earnhardt said, no, we need more downforce. So we got more downforce. And we just kept, it's grown since we started. In 90, we didn't make no downforce, and there was no aero tight. There was no dirty air. There was none of that.
Didn't you say in around 93 or something at Martinsville that you were aero tight and everybody thought you were insane?
Thought I'd lost my mind. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, behind cars, I'm tighter. I can tell it.
At Martinsville.
At Martinsville. And nobody believed that aero made a difference. And I'm like, it makes a difference if the car's moving. It may not make as big a difference at 30 miles an hour as it does at 150, but it does make a difference. And so I can't get anybody to even talk about the downforce level because they've tried. Well, the short track package is greatly less downforce than their big track package. And then they've tried without the diffuser. Drivers say they can't tell. They've tried all kinds of things. Driver says they can't tell. But, when you take downforce away, it's going to be hard for a driver to say, yeah, that's what we want. It's just, I'm no driver. I know. But so anyway, that's a long story, but I don't know. I've got to think about this a long time before I tackle the next thing, because it's like wrestling a bear.
Well, enjoy the win. Before I wrap things up, we're at about an hour. Anything else you guys want to get off your chest before we say goodbye?
Looking forward to next week.
Yeah.
I'm sure Matt will come up with some great stuff.
Yeah, and Matt will have some more great vintage classic NASCAR stories, which I love that format. I think people love it as well. I did lie though, because I want to finish on one last thing. And Matt and I did talk about this off air. I'm gonna read a tweet from Ryan McGee, because you guys saw Ryan Blaney had the mustache at the announcement. Yeah. And Ryan McGee says, this is his tweet. Ryan McGee, ESPN reporter. Big thanks to Ryan Blaney for leaving the 1897 spring training game between the Cleveland Spiders and Boston Bean Eaters to attend today's NASCAR announcement. And Matt, you said he looked like, an old soldier or something?
Well, yeah. I mean, I really thought that I saw a photo of Dad talking to Ryan before the announcement. And I mean, I thought he was a Prussian officer that had traveled there after his victory over the French to be at the, NASCAR, points announcement. So, I mean, I'm extremely envious of his ability to grow hair. I mean, it's just, I seriously, I've never seen anything like that outside of the 19th century. I mean, if he wore a military uniform from that time period, you would think, that he just stepped out of the time into our time. It's fantastic.
It is. Make no mistake, we love Ryan Blaney.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
and we are not picking at or making fun.
For sure.
Yeah, big fans of Ryan, and I mean, I'm going to call that look Otto von Blaney. And Otto AUTO. Otto von. I mean, it's like, dude, it's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. Perfect way to end the show there. Episode 2 of the Mark Martin Archive, talking about the points. Mark Martin, he got his win. I know the 36. We'll talk about that later, but you got to win, and I'm happy for you. And I think NASCAR fans are happy for you as well. So great job and good show, guys. We'll see you next week. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.